Hi, and welcome to the Rags to Riches show with myself, Terry Blackburn. Now, today's guest is a lady called Charlotte Edwards. She's got a different story to the ones we've had on so far. It started with tragedy in our family, losing two family members, and she was kind of thrown into the deep end of property development. To give you an idea of what I mean by that is our first project was a field, plot of land, with planning permission for 25 houses with a GDV of 7.7 million. Bearing in mind, this lady had never done anything like this before. I think that's a bit of a challenging project to start off with. She's now building her own portfolio and she's flourishing in her career and doing fantastically well at what she does. So it'll be a really interesting story to find out how she dealt with the challenges and being brand new to it and doing such a large project. So I'm excited to listen to her story. So welcome to the show, Charlotte Edwards.
Thank you for having me, Terry.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, thank you for coming on. I think it's a different type of story today, but I think hopefully by listening to your story, people will be inspired. And people will maybe just at the end of this session just think, you know what? I'm just going to jump in at the deep end, because half the time if you jump in the deep end, you'll just learn how to swim.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, you certainly did. You certainly did. So what we like to do, Charlotte, is we like to talk about somebody's career so far, split it up into parts, talk about each part. Yours is a little bit different, obviously, so it's mainly around sort of how you found it, really, as opposed to start, middle, and the current. So I think with yourself, I think we'll just talk about how it happened and how you got into it, how you found it, lessons that you learned, and just anything that you'd like to share, Charlotte. I think that'll be great for the listeners.
Okay, so I graduated from uni with a business degree and went into marketing straight away, and stayed in that for about just over 15 years. Like, happily, I was like a freelance marketing consultant, if you will. I sort of got to pick and choose my roles. Great, just needed a laptop, could work from pretty much anywhere. It was a nice, easy life. And then in 2019, I lost my brother. He was only 28 years old, to cancer. And then a couple of months later, my dad went as well, with cancer as well. So very close together. And we were like a really close family. Like, we all lived kind of next door to each other. You know, it was a massive loss. Aside from the personal loss, they left a business. They had a business together, and they did property development. And they had just acquired a field with planning permission for 25 houses. That was bank finance. There's finance out against that. And yeah, I had never done it before. I had never been involved. My dad had always been kind of like a bit old school. Like, he didn't really think that women should necessarily be on the building site, or he just didn't want his daughter to have to get her hands dirty. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you know, and he was the kind of guy as well that he ran everything, it was all in his head, or he ran everything off his mobile phone and from just the front of his van, you know, it was just like covered in paperwork. There was no computer systems, there was no, you know, there was nothing to pick up and look at after he'd gone. It was literally just a field. So that's where I started.
So yeah, I've got a few questions on that. So obviously you inherited the company, but you inherit the debt as well, right? So that loan, you were liable for that loan.
Yeah, and my mum's still around, so she's what, 66, 67 now, so was kind of winding down, not really wanting to do anything, and now she's involved in the company as well. But yeah. Okay,
so at that point, I suppose you have two options. It's either develop this site or sell the site. What made you develop it?
I think there were a couple of things at play. Brexit had just happened, and this thing called COVID had just been was just
What's
emerging in China. Yeah. So people were kind of a bit unsure at this time and didn't really know what was happening. There's a lot of uncertainty. So it wouldn't have been an easy sell, I don't think, that site. And then on the other side, there was this feeling of like he'd started something and I wanted to finish it, just out of, I suppose, just kind of a feeling of wanting to not let that go, let his business go, because he'd spent 30 years building it up. And I think my mum would say as well that she wanted something to focus herself on. She didn't want to just sit at home and think. So it gave her something to do as well. She does all the back office stuff for me and all the invoices and the payroll and things. So it gave her something to do. Yeah.
Then it's just sort of, it's carrying on his legacy, right? It's continuing what he wanted, and I'm sure I'd be very proud of what you've achieved, by the way. So obviously a horrible situation, a tragedy to then you've been thrown at the deep end and having to make a huge decision. It could have went really, really wrong. This, right? It could have went really, really, really wrong.
I mean, Jesus, when COVID struck and like, and then Boris Johnson shut everything down. He's like, nobody's moving house. We're not doing house viewings. Like everything was shutting down. I was just like, shit, what am I going to do?
Yeah, you can swear on this podcast. Don't about swearing. Yeah, you can swear on this thing. I
work on a building site, so like it's just second nature to swear. So
yeah, no, that's fine. So like, just before we jump on the next stage, like, I mean, what was going through your head? Have you been quite brave, like in your upbringing and things? Are you quite like a risk taker? Like what must have? No, not at all.
I used to get like anxiety if I was sort of like £100 overdrawn before the end of the month, before my paycheck came in. So the thought of like taking on something with debt and, the amount of outgoings for a development company, you're looking at like 6 figures a month just outgoing before anything comes in, before like it's months, even sometimes a year before you actually even, pay that off. So the anxiety was just, I'd never suffered with anxiety before, but I did after this. Yeah, definitely. It wasn't in my nature, not that much of a risk taker. No, I am now, but I wasn't. It didn't come naturally, definitely not.
Fair play. It must have been a crazy time. There must have been so many thoughts going through your head at once, and what do I do? What do I not do? I'll be interested. Were you still in this employed marketing job at the time or not?
Well, I tried to do the two at once to start with, and I mean that just sounds ridiculous now, but yeah, I thought it's okay. I'll do both. How hard can this development be? Yeah, that didn't last long. I think I nearly had a breakdown trying to do both. So yeah, I soon had to give up the marketing. So yeah, and went into development full time. And that was just over 18 months ago now.
Okay, cool. So now let's talk about the actual building. So obviously it already had planning, I think you said, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, the field had planning for 25 units.
25 units. Did you change your planning at all, or was it just you were going to keep the planning the same?
Keep it the same. There was a couple of slabs that had been put in the ground, so the planning was live. Yeah, so there was that was what I sort of turned up to.
Yeah,
and there was
a couple of slabs in the ground.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. And there was I thought, oh, that must be where the houses are going to go. I don't know anything about it. And I just taught myself. And the stupid thing is, I thought, okay, like I've got a degree, I've been to university, I'm an educated person. I'll do a course. There must be a course I can do, like really naively, on how to build houses. Like there must be one somewhere. So I rang around like all the like technical colleges and things like that, but nobody would take me on because I'd got no experience. And I kind of explained my situation. I was like, yeah, but I've got to do this. And they sort of said, well, you need 6 months experience. Come back to us when you've got 6 months experience. So, I mean, the funny thing is now I could probably teach those courses because I've literally just had to get stuck in. I think I could probably teach people how to build houses now. because of that too.
Yeah. And did you do any form of education? Did you read a book on it? Did you watch YouTube videos on it? Did you do a course
Yeah,
of
well,
any?
that's what I had to do. I had to educate myself. So I was reading books, watching, listening to podcasts, which is how I come across your show actually. And yeah, just watching YouTube videos, just anything I could really just use. And of course it was lockdown, so it's not as if anybody was socializing. So I had a lot of time to kind of teach myself, not just about construction and development, but like financial management and investment and how to manage money and balance books and like everything, like, because being a freelancer, it's just so easy. You haven't really got any outgoings. It's just all incoming, and you've just got to, you just live your life quite easily. But when you've got wages to pay and materials bills, and yeah, it's a bit of a different world.
Oh, for sure. And to make that transition, I think there's a difference between making a transition because it's something you've always wanted to do, and making a transition almost because your hand is forced. And I think there's a big difference. And not that your hand was fully forced, but you were just kind of thrown into this, weren't you? And I think sort of learning on your feet, thinking on your feet, you had to almost do. And there's time pressures, there's loans to pay, there's all these external factors. There's the COVID situation. At the start, you might have been thinking, even if I build this, can I even sell it?
Yeah.
Is it going to be worth less than what I'm projecting at the moment? There's all these crazy things, and for that to be your first project,
yeah,
is why I
didn't even know how to project costs at that point. Like, I just didn't even know how much a house would cost to build or anything like that. So it was just like, it was like walking into school on your first day, but you can't like read or write and you don't know anyone. That's what it was like, basically.
Yeah,
starting right at the beginning.
Okay, so out of interest, what education did you do then? Was it just reading, or did you do a course with somebody?
I didn't do any courses. I literally just was listening to loads and loads of podcasts. I'd just type in Spotify property, and I would just listen to them over and over again. And there's not so many development ones, but there's a lot of property investment and property management and renovation. Like, there's a lot of those kind of ones. So they were useful. I did learn a lot from those.
But that's not even the specifics though, right? A lot of the time it'll be a situation like this. It'll be somebody interviewing somebody or sharing a story, but they generally and typically don't go into the full details of step by step what to do, right?
No. So I was just picking people's brains. Anytime they came on site, any trade, like the BT engineer would turn up, I'd be like, oh, hey, so what are you doing? Tell me how this works. Like, anybody that turned up on site, and especially the building inspectors are the best ones, because I would just follow them around, and I'd be like, do you mind if I just follow you around and tell me what you're looking at and how it needs to be? And I just had to pick people's brains really, and that's how I did it.
On the job. Wow. Okay. So have you finished the build out of it? It's nearly finished, isn't it?
I'd say it's 75% there.
Okay, great. So what are maybe the top 3 key lessons that you have learned being thrown right in at the deep end? It's not in the deep end. This is like thrown in the middle of the ocean with no armbands and no one around is what's happened to you basically. You've been thrown in the ocean, never mind the deep end. But what have you learned? What's your top 3 learnings?
Education, but don't rely on other people. Like, educate yourself. I thought I could go and go on that college course and just learn what I needed to learn, but no, like, you've got to like rely on yourself, educate yourself, do your own research, rely on the people that you can. So if you've got friends and family who can help you out, that was key for me. My mum running the back office for me is invaluable. It allows me to concentrate on the on-site stuff and the construction and finding deals and stuff like that. And don't be scared of being in debt, because I was, but actually it's the stepping stone to making money, isn't it? And work with the person you're in debt with, because when I first called up the bank manager and I was like, hey, this is the situation, but but don't worry, I'll be fine. You know, this is all going to work out. It'll be fine. And I've got a really good relationship with the bank manager now after that, because he's seen what I could do unexpectedly, although it was. I've done it, and so I've proved myself. So now I'm not scared of that situation of being in debt anymore.
Love that. And there's good debt and there's bad debt, isn't there? The very basic principles of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know if you've read that.
Yeah, that was one of my books I read.
Yeah, it's unreal, isn't it? It's a book that changed so many people's lives, isn't it? And it's a book that pushed so many people into property, because the concepts of it, and it's so easy to understand, and it's so accurate as well. But love that. So educate yourself, network, and lean on the people around you. I think it's a great point as well. And have good relationships with your suppliers and your banks and things. Again, I think it's great advice. How did you find, we talked about just a bit about this off camera a second ago, being a woman in a man's world. How did you find dealing with trades? Because I'd imagine, I don't know if this has happened, but did some of them maybe think, oh, she's a bit of a newbie, she's a bit green, you know, I'll put my fees up for her. You know, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I can just spin her a load of shit, a load of lies, and she won't know any different. Did you experience anything like that with trades?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the first things that I did was get all of them to re-quote for the work. So any of them that were like on day rates or anything like that, we got them to quote for the job per house type. So they were on a price for each job, and then I was able to compare that with other, you know, get a few quotes and compare that with other contractors. The majority of the people that are working for us now, like they're reliable, loyal, and you know, I know they wouldn't take the piss, but at the start you don't know that, and we've met some bad ones along the way. But the team we've got now is really good, so we're lucky. Good.
That's good to hear. I can imagine you experienced a lot of that. Was that across the board with suppliers with all different trades? I know your dad had this view of, you know, it's a man's world. I don't think that's really true. It's an old-fashioned way of thinking now. I think times have changed, but did you experience that in other parts, or any other real challenges around that?
I still, every now and then, still get the guy turning up on site, like, and he'll just walk straight up to me and go, "Well, looking for the man in charge," and I just laugh. I just laugh. Yeah. And they feel awkward, obviously, after I say, "You're looking at her." But yeah, it depends who's asking, because sometimes I can use it in my favor and I'll be like, "Oh, he's not here today."
Yeah.
Depends on who it is.
Why? Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. Yeah, man, use what you've got. Love that. So during this really challenging process and challenging time, is this what you want to do forever now? Are you all in on property? Is this kind of what you want to do? I am
all in now, because I haven't got anything else to do now. But yeah, so like by default I'm all in. But I love it. I do enjoy it. I think I like being a woman in a man's world. It is a bit different. And I used to work in marketing and PR offices, and that's the opposite, is quite female heavy. So it's a completely different atmosphere. Like you get like the banter on site, and like, you know, like a group of men are like just take the piss out of each other all day long, and it's totally different environment to be in, isn't it? Like it's quite fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm enjoying that side of it. And it's great to see something built like from the ground up. Like it's really satisfying. And it's very, very varied. So I'll be, you know, one day reading legal documents and signing contracts, and the next day I'll be unloading a bathroom suite at the back of a lorry, or, you know, sweeping floors. Like it's such a variety of everyday tasks that you have to do, and I really enjoy that.
Definitely, instead of it being mundane and the same, and yeah, that's not for me either. Yeah, look, you've clearly got the bug for property now. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? You've got the bug, yeah.
And I think I can see the freedom that it's going to give in the future as well, and that's kind of addictive, because that allows you to do anything you want, right?
100%. Love that. You're building your own portfolio now, understand? So you're doing some BRR stuff. Tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing.
Yeah, so aside from this kind of family business, the development business, I decided on the side to start a sort of, I wanted to build a portfolio just in my own name, because I felt a bit vulnerable at the time, especially with COVID, and it's like, God, what if this business doesn't work? And or what if I can't carry on development, can't get any more land? Like, I just don't know what's going to happen. And I'm a single mum as well, so I have to think about myself and my kids. So yeah, I thought, start a property portfolio. All the education that I'd done, all the podcasts that I'd listened to, you know, I heard people that had done the same thing. I thought, right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and follow the BRR model. And I set myself a target to get 10 units in 10 months. So yeah, I think we're in month 9 now, and I have secured 10 properties, but they haven't all completed yet. 3 of them are still in legals. So I'll get there.
You'll get there, yes. Why not? Why not? In out of interest, are these buy-to-let? Are these HMOs, serviced accommodation? I know it's BRR, but what's the strategy on the exit?
They are all kind of single ASTs, just buy-to-lets. So yeah, refinance and just rent out. I did look at HMOs, but I just feel like there's the higher risk and more time consuming. So actually a property that I bought potentially to be an HMO, I decided just to turn it into single let. And I think rents have gone up so much at the moment that actually I'm not that far out of pocket from what I would be if it had been an HMO on my original figures. So yeah, I think single lets are for me, and that allows me to concentrate on the developments. Makes sense.
Fair play to what you've achieved. You've done fantastically well in such a short space of time as well. And I didn't know you had children either, which makes it even more impressive. Yeah, I've got 2 kids, also in balancing family life and home life and looking after the kids and being there for them, as well as running businesses, as well as doing property. It is very, very challenging. So fair play, that makes it even more impressive. So fair play to you. Would you say that your children are a driving factor for your success? What would you say is your sort of, if it's not your kids or if it's kids and something else, what sort of drives you to do this?
I suppose they do a little bit, although they do hinder me more than anything, because they're just not interested whatsoever. If I want to go and view a house, like, they just make it so difficult for me to go and view it. They just really don't want to do it. And I've tried to explain to them, like, in the future, like, this could mean that you don't even have to work. Like, if I get this right, if you help me now, you will benefit from this in the future. But they just don't get it, funnily enough. They're 7 and 10, so we'll give them a few more years yet. But yeah, they are a driving force, and just selfishly for myself as well, just so I would like more time freedom as well and have that passive income. I think that's the dream.
Yeah, man, definitely. Love that. And just to sort of wrap up, is there any other advice that you could give to, I just think a lot of people will be able to relate in some way to the things that you've said today about the procrastination and the hesitance of not doing something because they don't understand it. It might not be thrown upon them and thrust upon them like in your situation, but that hesitance, that thing that's holding people back to just actually going for it. I think you might be able to give some good advice on that. Is there anything you could advise people on in relation to that?
I'd just say the earlier you can start, the better, because I procrastinated for ages. So I didn't buy my first house now until I'm 37. And when I have done it, I've bought 10 in 10 months. So I was like, imagine if I'd have done this at 27, like, imagine how much better off I'd be now. And, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I didn't have the confidence or the knowledge or the education then. So I think if you can educate yourself a little bit, build your confidence, and just get in there as soon as possible. So what's that saying? It's not timing the market, it's time in the market, isn't it? So the sooner you can get into it, the better off you're going to be in the long run. Definitely.
I think that's great advice. I think, and the education that you've done doesn't cost a thing. Podcasts don't cost a thing to listen to. YouTube doesn't cost a thing to watch. There's books that are £5, £10, £20 on Amazon. Pretty sure everyone listening can afford 20 quid. So what I'm taking from that is, whether you've done buy-to-lets for a while and you're hesitant to do HMOs or hesitant to do a development, or you're hesitant to do anything at all, because you're worrying about X, Y, Z. Educate yourself for free as a starting point and just jump in, isn't it? It's just go for it, and maybe don't do a 7.7 million development in your first one.
No, not advised.
but maybe do about a later age. Just do something, right? And you're completely right. Time in the market pays dividends in the long run, doesn't it? For sure.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice, Charlotte. So thank you for that. The show's called The Rags to Riches Show, as you know. But what does being rich mean to you? Because you can be rich in loads of different areas of your life and parts of your life, monetary, time, relationships, friends, all of these different things. But what does being rich mean to you, Charlotte?
It means having my health and having good health. That's what it means to me, and especially with the history that I've had recently with my family. Like, you've got nothing without your health. So if you're healthy, you've got everything you need to succeed, I think.
Good answer. I like that, and you're completely right. In if you've got all the money in the world, but you're ill in hospital, that becomes completely irrelevant. Yes, if you're healthy and you've got good relationships from family and all these things, money complements that, and in my opinion, makes that a bit better because you have more freedom and choices. But money in its by itself does not make you happy, and it doesn't matter if your health. If you don't have your health, therefore health is more important.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe you can definitely have both, but I think it's definitely a good point about, and hopefully people are listening to this thinking, you know, I've been working on my business for so long, and I've been missing the gym and I'm eating crap. You know, I'm not looking after myself because they're sacrificing themselves just for income, just for wealth. When you're completely right, health is wealth, isn't it? And
it is, and I think one feeds the other. And I noticed, you know, the days that I take time out to go exercise and go for a run and stuff, actually I'm definitely more productive, and I have better ideas. And I do think that that the health can feed the wealth, if that makes sense.
100%. Running and walking, clarity of thought, for me personally anyway, is unreal. Just going to the gym, the endorphins that you get makes you perform better at work, for sure. You think clearer, you can make better decisions, you've got more energy. I'm completely with you on that. Out of interest, I was just speaking to someone else this morning about this, which is what made us think of it. Do you have a morning routine that involves exercise and things? Out of interest,
Yeah,
what do you do?
I get up at 7, set the alarm at 7, and I get out and I just go for a run, usually about 5k.
Every day, is that, most days?
Every day? Yeah, no, it should be every day.
Fair play though. That's still decent.
5 out of 7 days, let's say. Yeah, 5 out of 7. So yeah. No, I you know what? I miss those days I don't do it. I miss it. Like, I know the difference. My mindset's different. Like, I just feel a bit more sluggish. I know when I haven't done it. I hate doing it. I hate every second of it. I don't like running. I don't like exercising. But it's that feeling afterwards. It's addictive.
Definitely. Love that. Well, thank you so much, Charlotte. I've really enjoyed the episode. Hopefully people listening have took something from that. If anybody wants to reach out to you, if anybody wants to follow your journey and what you're doing at the moment, what's the best way, Charlotte?
Yeah, I share my journey on Instagram at accidental female developer. So you can follow me on there.
Accidental female developer. There you go. Well, thank you so much, Charlotte. Have a nice rest of your day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care.